Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Andrew Harvey for organizing this symposium and for inviting me here today. My name is Giuseppe Bellardita, and today I'm going to talk about the anaphoric use of the Hadza demonstrative sets, bami and hama. I would like to jump into the literature review because it's crucial for this kind of work. As you can see, hama and bami have received really different kind of treats. We have since 2013, she categorized them as in purely spatial terms, hama as near speaker and bami as near hearer. Then we have Miller and colleagues 10 years later. They categorize them as proximal and given. And then Harvey and colleagues in 2026 categorize hama and bami as proximate and anaphoric. So as you could see, we have very different kind of defining those demonstratives. And I put the slides to look closely at the paradigm. And we can clearly see the evolution of this debate. So we move from a strictly spatial interpretation to one that recognizes textual and pragmatic uses, especially in the latest grammatical sketch by Harvey and colleagues. Okay. Indeed, Harvey and colleagues point out that natural speech data support Miller's analysis of bami in particular. So they say that bami has more of an anaphoric use, indeed, and show apparently that the proximate pronoun hama can also act as an anaphoric element. I eventually came up with three main research questions. Question 0, I call it like this because this is basically our baseline. So is bami used actually as an anaphoric encoder? Then we have research question 1, is hama used as an anaphoric encoder? And question 2, if both sets can be used anaphorically, what drives the speaker's choice between the two of them? As you can tell, research question 1 and research question 2 basically go together because research question 2 explains why possibly hama is used anaphorically. I would like to jump into the methodologies and data analysis. As for the sources, I answer these questions adopting a corpus-based approach. The data comes from natural speech recordings from the ELAR, Endangered Languages Archive, and archived specifically in the corpus Griscom Harvey 2020. The data I present here are from three narrative texts. As for the methodology, I went with a referent tracking approach. Basically, I started by tracking specific reference across the narratives. And every time a demonstrative was used to retrieve one of them, I evaluated a few parameters. Between them, for instance, line of occurrence, the adopted form, which basically means bami versus hama, the specific grammatical role, and then I jumped into establishing establishing the discourse context, and then evaluating if there was anything such as, for instance, a topic continuity, if I could think of any referential distance that could tell me what was actually the role of the demonstrative. The goal of the analysis was this. So establishing the role of the demonstrative. So let's say if it was a first mention, if it was an anaphoric call, if it was a plain spatial deixis. Yeah. As for question 0, we can find actually a clue in the older literature. Sens herself actually in 2013 translated the locative be'ena, which shares the same root of bami as they're near you, they're just mentioned. And this shows maybe an early intuition of its textual use. Actually, my corpus analysis massively confirmed this intuition. Here you can see the tracking of the referent Panakwi, old woman, and you can see it's always retrieved by bami. This is, of course, feminine singular. And then we have the anaphoric occurrences of Panakwi Bi'i, old man. As you can see, mostly they use bami. There is only one exception. This is hama. This is masculine plural of hama. And I evaluated this as anaphoric, but I will talk about this later. Okay, we have established that bami is our dedicated set for anaphora, and we can move to question 1. Is hama used as an anaphoric encoder? If so, what drives the speakers to choose between the two? My hypothesis relies on Givon framework. I argue that the reference cognitive accessibility makes the difference when the speaker evaluates the choice between bami and hama. I have traced some roles of hama that cannot make us think of a spatial actually use. I have the first one I encountered, I call this thematic encoder, basically. What do you mean exactly by theme? As for theme, I'm following Dick, 1978. The theme sets the frame of the utterances, while the topic is, of course, what the sentence is about. This is an example from Dick, as I told you. As for Paris, the Eiffel Tower is really spectacular. And I wanted to take a look at this closed text, this one here, but I want to make sure you have some context before. We have a text which says, "She's a rainmaker of great rains in these two lands, the land of Ihanzu people and this northern land. And because she throws the rain, she throws wild food like honey. She spread it out among them all." So we are talking about a certain woman. This is the same Boko that there was a table a few slides ago. And as you can see, there is this inchi, which is actually Swahili for land. And it is first mentioned in line 16 with the abihi, and then retrieved in line 21 as with the same form. And this is not actually something we would have expected, because as far as we know, bami is our anaphoric element. But you can see that it is first mentioned in line 16 with abihi and then retrieved with abihi as well. The fact is, as I see this, as I could understand, inchi basically acts here as the theme, as I defined it in the TICS framework. And Panakwi acts more as the topic, actually. And you can say this even because Panakwi is actually retrieved with zero anaphora. There is no demonstrative in those lines here, in these lines here, even though she's the subject and the topic of the sentence. Okay, I have found other uses of hama. Here we see the hama actually acting as a syntactic pivot. Here, abihi is completely stripped of this spatial meaning. And as you can see, it is referred to some taboos. And of course, you cannot refer to a taboo in a spatial sense. The speaker is not pointing then at any physical taboo in the room. Instead, the demonstrative is used as a structural hook to introduce the relative clause, those which I know, and it then acts as a grammatical anchor, not a spatial element. And also Julia told about how the relatives in Hadza are constructed through a demonstrative. And I found indeed a pattern of this. This semantic glitching in particular is especially true in the case of what I call the demonstrative doubling. In this case, it is clear that the spatial meaning of hama is completely vanished. And it seems that hama is going through a process of grammaticalization because we have two demonstratives that, of course, cannot actually have the same function. And as I see it, hama is used to actually connect to the qua, so to the auxiliary, to the and indeed acts as a grammatical anchor, while bami acts purely as an anaphoric element. There is also this other example here. So yeah, basically in the doubling constructions, the two sets are not interchangeable. They occupy distinct linguistic tiers. Um, for this reason, I jumped into the research question number 2. So why bami, why hama? Here we see topic reactivation, which I found to be another use of hama. This is the table I gave you before, and we have like a chronological view of the narrative. In line 88, the old man were retrieved by BE, and then after 19 lines, it was retrieved by Abihi. And that is why, as I said, because there apparently is like a referential gap. So the speakers starts talking about other things like baobabs, like Hadza people. And when the old men return in line 107, their cognitive salience is basically dropped. And for this reason, the speaker cannot use the bami set, the BE we would have expected, because the referent is simply too far away in a cognitive sense, and they need to use a more salient a more salient demonstrative, such as the proximal hama, to reactivate them. And you have to bear in mind that the gap reference, Adzabe and Nobako, are both feminine, so there wouldn't be any ambiguity with Abihi. And I want to make sure you bear in mind that this is not just a matter of referential distance, because, for instance, we have this is a table I showed you before. For instance, we have some greater referential distance, such as 137185, but there is no switch to a hama demonstrative. The reason for this are first a morphological one, because the other active reference in the text are mainly masculine. So boko is actually unambiguous as a gender marker. And so the speaker can rely on the adnominal form alone to reactivate the reference without any risk of misidentification. So the speaker actually prefers to use the adjective form and not the pronoun, of course, because it may be not so salient, but it doesn't have to use a highly salient demonstrative such as ama. And second reason for this is if the referent remains recoverable, there is simply no need to overspecify it with the most salient hama set. In conclusion, these are the main findings of my study. Bami is the default demonstrative set used for to anaphorically retrieved, highly accessible and continuous reference, while hama is used for cognitively backgrounded or reactivated reference, or even as a syntactic pivot. Overall, the Hadza demonstrative system acts as a dynamic tool for common ground management and not as a strictly spatial paradigm. And this conclusion are compatible with what I found based on the available data, which brings me to the limitations of this work. I see that the corpus is kind of small, so this should be actually validate more through more data. And these theoretical frameworks were developed for typologically distant languages. And maybe there is not enough, or not, as far as I know, literature about information structure in Hadza. And I couldn't have the possibility to analyze prosodic data. But I feel this not actually invalidates my analysis overall. But I'm not here to evaluate my own work. I will just hope that it's fine for you and it can be useful, basically. These are the references if needed. And thank you very much for the attention. And if you have any question, I will be happy to try answer this.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. I see that Bonnie has her hand raised. So, Bonnie, please go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Great talk. Great job. And, don't ever feel bad for saying that your senior scholar is wrong. The amount of textual data that I had to make my analysis based on compared to what you had is worlds different. And the important thing for you to take away from that is you can't just take what's in the literature as true, right? You need to know what it's based on. And having worked with data firsthand yourself, you now have some basis for evaluating, what did this person make this claim based on? I essentially had 4 texts I was working with, texts that I had painstakingly translated by myself, and they were narratives, so they weren't, they were quite short. And also, I'm not a morphosyntax person. But my other comment is you might want to take a look at the AfriNAF project. This is a project on Anaphora and African languages, and it only has 40 African languages in it. So really to add information about Anaphora on Hadza is this huge benefit to our knowledge about Anaphora in Africa. I think it's great, and I believe Chris Collins is one of the people behind this, and I'm sure he would love to get some Hadza data on that website. That's
No,
the
yeah,
sad thing.
sorry.
Once you do work, people are like, more, give me more.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the comment and appreciate your enjoyment of this.
I'm interested now. So among sort of the limitations of the study, the first one that you wrote was it's a small corpus. Now, of course, from Bonnie working with sort of the limited materials, and from now us working with sort of more materials, I'm interested in when we think like a corpus is big enough to sort of make generalizable comments. Like in this context, you probably know more than I do in terms of like what is like an acceptably large corpus for like a study of this phenomenon.
I'm not sure. The fact is, I think that maybe having only narrative texts that I've worked on made it difficult to really understand. May even like I had the suspect I've never actually find a case of a demonstrative having spatial use, or at least not that I could find. But I'm not saying, of course, that hama and bami have 0% spatial reference. The thing is, maybe like having diverse kind of texts may make it easier to actually determine the use of grammatical stuff and everything. So I would say that I don't know, maybe yeah, having different kind of occasions to look at the natural speech, basically.
So in a sense, it's a little bit less about size and more about the texture and the variation within that corpus. That's
Yeah,
a
maybe I
really
was
interesting comment. Stephen, you have your hand up. Feel free to ask.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that it would also be interesting to see if there are any correlations with gesture and that kind
yeah,
of thing,
yeah,
which,
totally.
yeah, I understand you won't have the opportunity to do. But yeah, because I think, I mean, this is not my area of expertise by any means, but I think there is quite a big literature on the way that demonstrative use interacts with
Yeah.
gesture.
Yeah, I mean, because in a more complete work, I would have also actually checked for the video registration, because every of this data actually has a video, so you can
Okay,
tell
that's fantastic.
if
Yeah.
they're actually pointing out at stuff. So if it can be interpreted as a actual spatial exists.
I just have a thought inspired by both your talk and Julia's, which is looking at Sigmund Freisinger's paper on From Verb to Anaphora. He's saying that a lot of anaphoric terms come from verbs. You know, of course, we see the ha is similar to the haka, and if haka itself was actually from a serial verb, ha plus ka, like some go verb to a go to a point, go stand to a point, that would explain haka having that going to reference. Anyway.
Thank you so much.
Interesting observation, Bonnie. That's neat.
Maybe I can also work with Julia on this.
Yeah, exactly. Co-authored paper now.
Yeah.
Any further comments or questions? In a sense, I mean, this is quite an encouraging kind of presentation, because it works with data that is an output of kind of the documentation, and that's quite nice, because often, you know, the underlying assumption of documentation is it could be useful to linguists for some kind of work that they do, but I think that sometimes you don't get the opportunity all the time, and this is a really good sort of demonstration of, you know, being able to take material from a documentation and doing some linguistics with it. So in a sense, it's a bit encouraging. And next time I sit down to try and transcribe and translate a Hadza text, I will realize, okay, well, there's people out there who can do things with this and who might be interested in it. So that's very encouraging. All that remains is to thank our speaker once again and move on to our next talk. So thank you very much, Giuseppe.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Bonnie and Steven, for the suggestion. I will try and check for them as soon as possible. And thank you, Andrew, for, again, the symposium and everything.